Hey, it's Chris. I can't believe it, but I finally got inside Apple's spaceship headquarters building in Cupertino, California. I'm going to tell you about what I saw inside and show you what I saw inside. As you may or may not know, I was invited this year to attend WWDC in person. That's Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, and it's been a while since I was there in person. Last time I was there in person, it was at the Moscone Center, so I was excited for a couple reasons. One, I was just excited to set foot on Apple's campus. That was going to be exciting in and of itself for somebody who's been a fan of Apple's products and hardware for such a long time. Number two, I was extra excited to go inside the Steve Jobs Theater, the building that we always see on all the different Apple events, live and in person. I had never been there before because that's where I thought the event was going to be held, inside the Steve Jobs Theater. And I did get to go there, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. But it was just totally unexpected to be able to go inside Apple's spaceship-looking circular headquarters building. So I showed up the day of the keynote at the main gate there because I had to get my press pass, and I also had to submit a COVID test. Apple required that you had a COVID test done within the last 24 hours, and you submit proof, and they also required that you wear a mask through the event. So I get my press pass and I set foot on Apple's campus, and there's a sidewalk that I'm following, and all these Apple employees are kind of directing everyone where to go. There's just a herd of developers and a few press people kind of making their way towards what I thought was going to be the Steve Jobs Theater in the event. But as we're going down the sidewalk, there was an Apple employee that spotted my press pass, and she split me off from the rest of the group. And at that moment, I realized, oh, what? I'm going inside the spaceship. Okay, that was unexpected. And so I peel off, and I was with Christopher Lawley.
Hey, it's Chris. Hey, it's Chris.
And we go in, they tell us to go up to the third floor, and everywhere we went, there was always, one or two or several Apple employees kind of shepherding us, making sure we weren't going anywhere we weren't supposed to, lots of security people around. So while it was already surreal being on Apple's campus for the first time, it was extra surreal going inside this building that I had seen, that I had read about, talked about, because this was a building that was very important to Steve Jobs. It was one of the last things he was involved with. But as I'm going inside this building, I'm recalling that last video of Steve Jobs alive in public where he's talking to local officials about wanting to build this very building that I'm going inside. So I get to the third floor, and lo and behold, I find myself in like a balcony section or an upper deck of Cafe Max. So I was talking to one of the Apple employees there, and she's like, yeah, this is where we eat every day. And it's just a crazy atrium space with these huge trees and amazing views, no matter which way you're looking, into the courtyard or outside. So where I was there on the third floor, which is sort of like the press area before the event. So all the press was gathering there. I saw people from the Washington Post, from Engadget, from The Verge, lots of other YouTubers, right? Everyone just kind of hanging out, talking before. But I look over the balcony and I can see all the empty chairs they've got lined up for the event. So the way they had it set up was half the audience was going to be inside, half was going to be outside. Where the stage was, it was kind of set up like a concert, but they had big screens set up in the back for the people who couldn't see up to the front. And there's just a lot of energy in a place, right? Because all the Apple employees are there kind of hyping people up, and there's music playing, and you're talking to people. You're like, what do you expect? I don't know. I hope this comes. And I did take a minute, and I just went back to the courtyard area and kind of took in that view and kind of saw all the nice landscaping. And it's weird just seeing this place with your own eyes that you see in all the marketing material and the promotional stuff. It's weird to actually be there. It's weird to be looking down this hall that's curving around, and it really does feel like a spaceship. It doesn't feel like something from planet Earth. And there's so much glass on the inside of this place, which means there's a lot of light always coming in. It's always seems like it's going to be a bright and cheerful place. I mean, someone was telling me what the chairs cost in the cafeteria there. They were custom, they were expensive. Just everywhere you looked and in every detail, you could tell there was a lot of attention paid to why whatever the object was or the view was, why it was that way. Subscribers know I love Nitro coffee. I saw like 4 spouts that almost looked like they could have been Nitro tabs. I thought, I know they have Nitro coffee. Is that like the mother load and the Apple employees get to have all this Nitro every day? And I went over, and lo and behold, it was not Nitro. It was like 4 types of fancy water. There was, though, a proper espresso bar in there, because there's almost like these little nooks where there's fancy restaurants almost So as we're getting closer to the keynote, the Apple employees kind of start saying, hey, let's head down. And so everyone's kind of going down the stairs and joining up with all the developers who are making up the majority of the audience. And they had the press sitting kind of about halfway from the stage in the back of the audience. And luckily, I ended up sitting right on the cusp of where the shadow was, because I know some other people got sunburned. And they're like, dude, did you get sunburned? I was like, no, I put some sunscreen on before the day started. And actually, Apple had given us some bags with some sunscreen, with some Apple masks, with some WWDC pins and stuff. And later, the next day, he was like, I messed up. But luckily, I think he was a row ahead of me. I was in the shade there, which is good. So everyone finds a seat. There's no assigned seating or anything. To my left is Brian Tong, and right on the other side of him is MKBHD. On my right is David Sparks, who I'd never met before, from Max Sparky. Renee Ritchie's behind me. Justine's over here. So everyone that you would recognize is kind of just like in these 2 or 3 rows. So this was Justin Say's first time at WWDC. This was Tyler Stallman's first time at WWDC. There was some non-English speaking YouTubers that came over and said, hey, and introduced themselves, that I had never seen before. And I looked them up later and they were like bigger than me. So it was really cool to meet a bunch of new people. So the keynote starts, a couple executives come out and they're talking for just a little bit to kick things off. And then it was just a big screen with all the pre-recorded stuff that you saw on the live stream. I saw Tim Cook and Craig Federighi kind of walk over, and they were sitting a few rows over and to my right. And I will say, there's nothing like being at an actual Apple event if you're an Apple fan. It's cool. It's one thing to watch it online, that's still exciting. But when there's other people in the room who are extra excited about stuff too, like you.
We're excited to start the next generation of Apple Silicon for the Mac. Introducing M2.
Everyone's just kind of feeding off of the energy, except there's always some downers, right? Some people sitting right around me were like just hating on everything because they feel like that's sort of their brand, I think. But when they came out and announced the continuity camera feature, there was a lot of applause. People were like, oh, wow, oohs and ahs. And people weren't expecting that. And that really showed in the crowd in a way that it wouldn't if you're just watching the live stream. So the event wraps up, and after this, everyone kind of starts heading over to the Steve Jobs Theater, which I was actually really excited about. It was really cool to be inside the building, obviously, but I didn't really get to see any of the office space or anything like that. But inside the Steve Jobs Theater, Apple had set up some displays with the new MacBook Air, and there's sort of like a sculpture-y looking one where there's a bunch of MacBook Airs and they're slightly opening a little bit more as you go. It's almost like a stop motion animation, and the employees were making sure that no one was gonna touch. Take some pictures, but don't touch. And then inside the rest of the circle in the lobby there, they had several MacBook Airs set up with lots of people trying to get their hands on to see what it looked like. How was it to hold? Was it really light? What did the new colors look like? Eventually someone started saying like, hey, Tim Cook's supposed to be coming in here in a second, so if you want a picture or something, you can hang out for a minute. And I wasn't really trying to get a selfie or anything. I know some of the other people were, so we kind of hung out for a little bit. And sure enough, a few minutes later,
I assumed these.
But that was really the end of my time spent there, because after that, I went straight back to the hotel so I could film a reaction video. Some people stayed around and filmed there. Before I left, though, I did kind of wander around a few of the paths. It didn't really seem to be closed or off limits. Just kind of see what it was like wandering around the campus. Ultimately, as somebody who really gets a lot done with their Apple gear and enjoys using their Apple hardware, it was cool to go to this nucleus where so much of, the Apple products and brand is built, even though Apple has buildings all over the world and lots of big campuses elsewhere. And even around Cupertino, it seemed like half the town had an Apple sign out front. Old houses have been converted into office space, old buildings. It's not just this one building there. Apple is all over the town, spread out everywhere. So it was fun, just kind of exploring that Cupertino area there, visiting the visitor center, hanging out with people, meeting lots of people, buying exclusive t-shirts that you can only get in Cupertino. If you missed my other videos about all that stuff, I'll try to link it up down below, or you can go search for it. Something else that's definitely worth searching for is Jasper, the AI writing assistant that I use all the time. Saves me all kinds of time. We don't have a sponsor for today's show, so if you want to show your support, go check out Jasper. I'll link it up down below. And with that, I'm not ready to quit hanging out, so let's talk a little bit about some news. There's one headline I want to talk about in particular. There's a new iOS 16 feature that hasn't gotten a ton of coverage, and it has to do with Apple going to war against one of Google's most annoying features, CAPTCHA. And I, for one, cannot be more thrilled. Here's why. There's nothing I hate more online when I'm going to log in somewhere. I got to get done whatever I need to get done. But first, I have to take some time and identify all the traffic signals or all the crosswalks or all the dog craps on the sidewalk. This is Google CAPTCHA, and it's not fun. Now, as annoying as the CAPTCHA system is, it does actually serve a purpose. It stands for something. It stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart. CAPTCHA. Essentially, it was a solution that was designed to help protect websites from spam and abuse, especially from bots. So it was a way to tell the humans apart from the machines. And I think it was also a way to basically enlist humanity on behalf of Google for free to train their AI system for them to identify what's what. So surveillance capitalism all aside, it's beyond annoying and it's old tech by this point. Grandpa tech, really old. And Apple's had enough. I've had enough, and Apple's actually doing something about it. So with iOS 16, Apple has this new feature that can bypass CAPTCHAs in apps and on the web by allowing iCloud to automatically and privately verify your device and account. And on the consumer side, so that would be you and I, there's just a little toggle that you can flip, and when you enable it, then you can kiss CAPTCHAs goodbye for any website or service that implements this new Apple technology. Now, the technicalities are probably somewhat boring to you, but essentially Apple's employing private access tokens to help identify legit sources of traffic, legit visitors, non-bots. But, and this is actually a good but, because sometimes you're like, but there's a downside, but there's an extra upside here actually, because there's an Apple twist here. They're not just helping to do away with CAPTCHAs, they're doing it in a way that helps protect people's personal information and data. So whereas Google's known for mining your personal information and trying to profit from it, Apple's known for trying to do more to protect your personal information and profit from selling you very expensive devices and services. And whereas Google's CAPTCHA made life more annoying and less easy for people online, here comes Apple with their automatic identification system, and they're making life easier. They're making it just work. It's kind of what Apple does whenever they can in these little situations. It's not like a big deal, this thing, right? We've all lived with CAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA for a long time, but it's one of those things that's just so nice that you're not even gonna realize how nice it is because you're not gonna deal with the CAPTCHAs anymore after a while. Just like Apple's trying to get rid of passwords. We can talk about that in a whole nother episode. It's just a nice thing. Like, who out there is going to mourn the death of CAPTCHA? Nobody, just Google. And you know, something else that you won't mourn is subscribing to the Daily Tech podcast. Yes, I'll link it up down below. Get connected. Usually new episodes on Fridays. All right, I really like pointing out great new products whenever I find them, and I ran into something really cool for anybody who's got a brand new 24-inch iMac. So let me introduce you to the Satechi Slim Dock. And by the way, somebody out there is going to be like, let me introduce you to the proper way to say Satechi. It's Satechi. I don't know what it is, but I like this product. I'm just sharing it with you. You don't have to be the comment police about it. Now, when the iMac was new, I got one of the orange review units, if you could call it orange. I guess it was orange from the back. From the front, I don't really know what color that was. But I found that it was a really great computer for just day-to-day usage, light computing, really enjoyable, aesthetic, obviously. But one thing that could use a little improvement would be port access. Because on the iMac, those ports are around the back, so you're kind of just feeling around blindly to try to find where to plug something in, or you have to like just twist it around so you can actually physically see what you're doing. Well, that's exactly what this Slammy dock fixes. So it kind of sits on top of the base of the iMac, and then it's got a bunch of different ports lining the edges, which is great, but it's also got a hidden feature, like a superpower, if you will. It's got a tool-free SATA enclosure, meaning you can easily install some additional solid-state storage, the good stuff, the fast stuff, right inside the enclosure. So this is a really well-thought-out design and accessory from Satechi. I'm going with Satechi. But it's cool that it matches perfectly your computer as long as you have silver or blue. So not orange, not any of the other colors. And it's cool that, you know, the Mac keyboard just fits right on top of this thing if you want to store that out of the way. It's just really well thought out. Seems to be getting good reviews from places. So if the iMac was my Mac, if I still had it, I would definitely get this. The only downside might be the $150 price tag. That's steep, but it's really unique. And for what it does, if you're going to sit there and rely on that iMac, this is one of the best ways to get more out of it. All right, I'm going to spend a second just responding to a comment that I got recently. I should say it's a recurring comment. I see this comment from time to time. People comment at me like I'm Apple. I'm not Apple. hey, it's just Chris. But people are like, why doesn't the iPad have an official calculator app still? We got a weather app now with the new iPadOS 16. Where's my calculator app? People go crazy over this. Let me just say, I'm not going to pretend to know, where the passion comes from behind the calculator, the Apple calculator, the missing Apple calculator. I don't know what gets people all fired up about it. Maybe they just assume you get it on your phone, you got it on the Mac. Why is it missing from the iPad? I don't know. I don't really care because I'm not super affected by this. Do you know why? Because the iPad actually does have a calculator. Well, actually, it doesn't have a calculator. It has several calculators, lots of calculator options to choose from in the App Store. They're not Apple's calculator. Apple didn't go and design a calculator, except, well, actually, they sort of did. Because if you hit Command Space, you're going to bring up the search bar, and right inside that search bar, you can actually do some calculations. Now, is that sort of a workaround? Obviously so. It's not a full official calculator, but it's there. I mean, I use it sometimes. I just use it today. I also have the Wolfram Alpha app, right? And I use that for more complicated things than even a normal calculator could do anyways. So I guess the question to everybody who freaks out over this is, where's the limit for what apps we don't need Apple to create and populate on there? Because on a Windows system or in some Android devices, when stuff starts getting loaded onto that device for you, a lot of people start kind of referring to that as bloatware, right? And how much bloat do you want even Apple to include for you? Apple makes what I think is kind of like the minimum viable suite of apps for its products to just kick people off, to get them going. iWork, Pages, Keynote, apps like that. So you got your basic productivity covered. You got some creative stuff like iMovie. I'm seeing this article here from Input Mag, a whole article talking about this that says, the Apple gods finally answered my prayer with the proper iPad weather app. It only took 12 years for Apple to come to its senses and make an official weather app for iPadOS 16. Well, that's another thing, there's lots of weather apps. We weren't hurting for weather apps before. Like, what changes for somebody now that they have a weather app on their iPad? Sometimes when the iPad's a second screen, it's nice to have something take up the whole screen, like that Ficlo clock app. If you're on the Mac and you just want a clock over here, put on the Ficlo clock, or maybe put on the weather. I guess if it's not doing anything anyways, just sitting there idle, might as well have something there full screen, I guess, if you want to. But when you're using the iPad, you don't really need a big, crazy full screen weather experience, do you? I mean, usually when I check the weather, I just ask Siri or something like that. Although I know Apple bought a weather platform a while ago and they're just integrating in it. I was kind of surprised that they were spending time at the keynote really talking about this weather app for the iPad. I don't know. It's not super exciting to me in the way that Stage Manager is exciting. But to hear this article talking about it is like, Apple Senior Vice President Craig Federighi dropped the bombshell announcement at WWDC 2022, fulfilling every iPad owner's #1 request. For me, a day one iPad owner, it was the only thing I really wished for. I mean, no offense to whoever wrote this article. That's not what I've been wishing for, though, when it comes to iPadOS features. I'm getting some of the stuff that I've been wishing for, like better multitasking, external display support, desktop class apps, not the pro desktop class apps that I'm after, but those are the kind of improvements that I actually care about. I just don't actually care about the weather app all that much, and I don't actually care about the calculator all that much. It's almost like it's just something to complain about. People like to complain, and they've kind of heard other people complain about it, so they're just kind of glomming on, and yeah, let's complain about it. It's the thing to do. I don't know. Am I the only one who just doesn't care? Leave me some comments. Fill me in if I'm not seeing clearly here. And let me know why it matters so much. I'm happy to change my opinion and start caring about it and really get invested in it if I need to. I don't think I need to, but let me know. Otherwise, that's it for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.